Thank you for listening. This course was created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional podcasts, books, newsletters, and cool merchandise await. Let's get started. The concept of the data lifecycle provides the foundation for understanding how artificial intelligence systems manage, protect, and ultimately retire their most valuable asset data. In this context, the lifecycle refers to the complete journey of information, beginning with its collection and ending with its deletion. Each stage presents unique security requirements, and together they form an unbroken chain of responsibilities. Collection, labeling, storage, retention, and deletion are not isolated tasks but interdependent phases, where decisions in one stage shape risks in another. For AI governance, this lifecycle orientation is essential. Policies and protections must align with the full journey rather than being applied piecemeal. If the lifecycle is not secured comprehensively, gaps will emerge where adversaries can exploit weaknesses or compliance obligations will be unmet. By viewing data as dynamic rather than static, organizations can more effectively safeguard its integrity, confidentiality, and availability throughout its use in AI. The earliest stage data collection carries risks that, if ignored, propagate downstream. Consent and legitimacy are often first concerns. Was the data gathered lawfully, and were the individuals aware of how it might be used? Beyond legalities, malicious inputs may be hidden deliberately, waiting to poison a training set or skew outcomes. External sources are particularly problematic, as data scraped or purchased may contain both questionable quality and embedded threats. Drift is another risk. As data intake grows uncontrolled, datasets can diverge from the intended scope, diluting accuracy or introducing bias. These vulnerabilities underscore why collection must be tightly governed. Clear provenance, filtering, and ethical sourcing are not only compliance issues but also defenses against adversarial influence. Without early diligence, the system inherits flaws that no later safeguards can fully undo, compromising both technical robustness and organizational trustworthiness. Labeling, often overlooked, represents another point of fragility. Incorrect annotations can subtly distort model behavior, teaching it associations that do not align with reality. More dangerous still is malicious label tampering, where attackers deliberately mislabel data to induce vulnerabilities. Crowdsourcing, a common approach to labeling at scale, introduces trust concerns. Are the annotators vetted, and is their work monitored for consistency? Even with honest effort, quality assurance has limitations, especially as the size of datasets grows beyond what any single team can manually verify. These risks show that labeling is not a mechanical task but a security-sensitive operation. Implementing redundant reviews, automated consistency checks, and robust contracts with vendors are strategies that mitigate exposure. Failing to secure this stage effectively plants the seeds of error that training will only magnify. Once data is collected and labeled, storage becomes the next arena of defense. Encryption at rest is essential, ensuring that even if files are accessed without authorization, their contents remain unreadable. Segmentation of datasets limits the blast radius of a breach, preventing attackers from accessing entire corpora at once. Versioning allows for recovery if corruption or compromise is detected, while also supporting reproducibility in research or compliance audits. Special care must be given to protecting sensitive attributes, such as personally identifiable information, health data, or financial records. These subsets require stricter controls, since their exposure carries disproportionate risk. Secure storage is not only about technology but also about process. Backups, access logging, and redundancy must all be integrated into a coherent strategy that treats stored data as a living, sensitive asset. Retention decisions highlight the tension between usefulness and risk. Regulations may require data to be retained for specific periods, as in financial or medical contexts. At the same time, the longer data is kept, the greater the chance of exposure. Balancing necessity with vulnerability requires explicit lifecycle tagging, marking datasets with metadata that define when and how they should expire. Automated expiry policies enforce these rules, ensuring that no dataset lingers beyond its justified use. Without such controls, organizations tend to accumulate data indefinitely, creating vast, unmanaged risk surfaces. Retention is therefore not just a compliance task, but a proactive security measure. Knowing when to let go of data is as important as knowing how to protect it while in use. Data deletion, while seemingly straightforward, is often the hardest stage to execute correctly. Information rarely exists in a single place. It propagates into derived sets, transformed formats, and embedded representations. Removing embeddings, for instance, is challenging, as they encode features of the original data in ways that are difficult to trace. Regulations such as the right to be forgotten demand full erasure, yet ensuring complete removal across backups, logs, and derived artifacts is a formidable task. Failure at this stage can lead to regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Effective deletion strategies require both technical tools, such as secure wiping and automated cascades, and governance processes that audit compliance. Treating deletion as a serious discipline, rather than an afterthought, ensures the lifecycle ends as securely as it began. Provenance tracking builds accountability into the data lifecycle by documenting where data comes from, how it changes, and where it is used. Logging data origin helps establish whether the source was legitimate and whether consent was secured. Cryptographic signing can authenticate datasets, proving that they have not been tampered with between stages. Lineage records show the path data has taken, from raw intake through transformations and into model training, creating a chain of custody that can be reviewed when issues arise. Provenance plays a crucial role in accountability. When a dataset is later found to contain toxic or biased information, organizations must be able to trace back through the pipeline to understand how and why it was included. Without this visibility, problems remain mysterious and unfixable. With provenance, they can be investigated, corrected, and prevented from recurring. Integrity protections are another cornerstone of lifecycle security. Hashing allows defenders to detect if files have been altered, whether by accident or by malicious actors. Verification mechanisms, run periodically, ensure that stored datasets remain intact. Redundancy, achieved through checksums and mirrored copies, provides resilience against corruption. Regular audits add a governance dimension, verifying that data has not silently drifted from its expected state. These measures may seem routine, but their importance cannot be overstated. Silent corruption can undermine model accuracy, while deliberate tampering can poison systems without obvious warning signs. By embedding integrity protections into lifecycle processes, organizations gain confidence that their data foundations remain solid even as they evolve and expand. Confidentiality protections extend beyond storage to include how sensitive information is structured and exposed. Anonymization strategies attempt to remove personally identifiable details, but they must be applied carefully, as re-identification attacks can sometimes reconstruct hidden identities. Pseudonymization, where identifiers are replaced with consistent but artificial markers, provides utility for analysis while reducing risk, though trade-offs remain. Encryption for sensitive subsets adds another shield, ensuring that even within secure environments, access is gated. Access restrictions reinforce these measures, limiting which individuals or processes can handle sensitive elements. Together, these approaches prevent inappropriate exposure, aligning technical safeguards with privacy expectations and regulatory requirements. In AI contexts, where massive datasets often contain human information, confidentiality is not optional but fundamental to responsible practice. Access controls for data ensure that protections are not only theoretical but enforced in daily operations. Role-based permissions clarify who can access which datasets, ensuring that responsibilities align with job functions. Just-in-time access reduces standing privileges, granting temporary rights only when needed and revoking them automatically afterward. Audit trails record every access attempt, successful or failed, creating an accountability layer that deters abuse and supports investigations. Segregation of duties ensures that no single individual can both approve and execute sensitive operations, reducing insider risk. Access controls thus provide a dynamic, living shield around data, adapting to organizational needs while constraining opportunities for misuse. In large AI projects, where multiple teams collaborate, such controls prevent accidental oversharing and deliberate compromise alike. Training data security deserves special emphasis, as this stage defines the long-term behavior of models. Isolating training clusters reduces the risk of cross-contamination between projects or tenants. Securing staging pipelines ensures that only validated data reaches the training environment, filtering out poisoned or malformed examples. Preventing data leaks during training protects sensitive inputs from being inadvertently logged or exposed. Tamper detection mechanisms flag unauthorized modifications to datasets or checkpoints. Each of these defenses recognizes that training is not just a computational task, but a high-stakes operation where errors or compromises can have permanent effects. Once a model has internalized a dataset, reversing the influence of a security breach becomes extraordinarily difficult, underscoring why prevention at this stage is paramount. Inference data security, while distinct, is equally critical. Input validation ensures that prompts or queries are filtered for malicious intent before reaching the model. Output sanitization helps prevent harmful or unintended results from propagating to users or downstream systems. Prompt data handling requires careful logging and monitoring, since prompts themselves may contain sensitive business information. Transient storage introduces additional risks, as temporary files or caches may persist longer than intended, leaving traces of sensitive inputs. Protecting data in inference contexts requires a mindset that treats every interaction as sensitive, recognizing that attackers often exploit these exchanges to extract information, manipulate outputs, or escalate access. Security at inference is therefore about vigilance in real time, complementing the preventative focus of training data protections. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Data in transit introduces another category of risks that must be controlled carefully. Whenever information moves from collection pipelines into storage, between training clusters, or from inference services to clients, it becomes vulnerable to interception or tampering. Transport layer security encryption provides the first layer of defense, ensuring that packets cannot be read by outsiders. Network segmentation further limits exposure, separating sensitive traffic from general-purpose channels. Trusted pathways, such as dedicated private links, add assurance that data is not traversing unmonitored routes. Even subtle lapses can prove costly, as adversaries often watch for unsecured endpoints or weak cipher suites. Protecting data in motion is therefore as important as protecting it at rest, ensuring that security does not falter at the very moments when information is most exposed. Regulatory anchors shape how data must be handled across industries. The General Data Protection Regulation in Europe imposes strict rules on retention and deletion, emphasizing individual rights to control personal information. In healthcare, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act mandates confidentiality and careful handling of patient data. Financial services must comply with standards like the Payment Card Industry Framework, which defines encryption and retention obligations for payment data. Each sector carries its own mandates, and AI projects that cross-sectors must reconcile these overlapping requirements. Understanding and applying these anchors is not optional. They define the legal environment in which AI security operates. Compliance failures can mean not only penalties but also loss of trust, which in the realm of AI may be even more damaging than fines. Dataset sharing presents additional challenges, as data often flows beyond the original organization. Internal sharing, if poorly managed, can expose sensitive sets to teams without legitimate need. External partnerships multiply the risk, as trust must now extend across organizational boundaries. Accidental overexposure may occur when datasets intended for restricted use are shared more broadly, whether through misconfigured access controls or careless distribution. Cross-border transfers add legal complexity, since data protection laws vary by jurisdiction and may conflict. These risks demonstrate that data governance cannot stop at the organizational edge. Instead, it must anticipate the movement of data outward, applying controls that preserve confidentiality and compliance, even when trust shifts to external parties. Synthetic data offers one solution to some of these risks. By creating artificial datasets that resemble real ones, organizations can reduce reliance on sensitive material for training or testing. Synthetic data lowers the chance of re-identification, since the records are generated rather than drawn from actual individuals. It can also augment pre-training by broadening the range of examples without exposing confidential sources. Yet limitations remain. Synthetic data may lack the full fidelity of real-world distributions, potentially introducing its own biases or blind spots. It is therefore a supplement, rather than a replacement, useful for reducing exposure but not a universal answer. The key is to use synthetic data strategically, balancing its protective benefits with awareness of its constraints. Security logging provides another layer of defense by creating visibility into how data is accessed and used. Comprehensive logs should record who accessed what, when, and under what context. They should differentiate between successful and failed attempts, capturing patterns that might signal malicious probing. Immutable storage of logs prevents tampering, ensuring that evidence remains intact for audits or investigations. Without such logging, suspicious activity may pass unnoticed, and accountability may evaporate. With it, organizations gain both deterrence and forensic capability. In the context of the data lifecycle, logging stitches together the stages, showing how information moves and who interacts with it at each point. This visibility transforms governance from aspiration into enforceable practice. Incident examples underline why lifecycle security matters in practice. Mislabeled toxic data has slipped into corpora training models to reproduce harmful outputs. Training corpora themselves have been stolen, representing both intellectual property loss and privacy exposure. Deletion processes have failed, leaving partial erasures that violate compliance promises and expose organizations to penalties. Backup copies, often overlooked, have leaked sensitive information long after primary sets were retired. These cases show that lifecycle security is not theoretical. It is tested daily in real-world systems. Each failure reflects a stage where controls were missing or weak. Learning from such incidents highlights where investments in lifecycle protections pay the greatest dividends. Tooling provides practical means to enforce lifecycle protections at scale. Data loss prevention systems can scan for sensitive information, leaving approved channels, reducing the chance of accidental or malicious exfiltration. Automated labeling verifiers use machine learning to cross-check annotations, catching inconsistencies or suspicious patterns in crowdsourced or vendor-provided work. Secure storage platforms offer encryption, access control, and audit features as built-in capabilities, lowering the operational burden on individual teams. Compliance dashboards tie these tools together, showing whether lifecycle obligations are being met and flagging gaps for remediation. By adopting such tooling, organizations shift from manual, error-prone processes to automated safeguards that operate continuously, aligning technical enforcement with policy goals. Integration with lifecycle management systems raises these controls to an organizational scale. Automated enforcement ensures that retention policies, for example, are not optional guidelines but hard-coded realities in the data environment. Orchestration of policies across pipelines keeps training, inference, and storage aligned with one another, reducing fragmentation. Anomaly detection can highlight deviations from expected patterns, such as sudden surges of access to sensitive sets or unexpected movements of data across regions. Continuous governance ensures that controls remain active and relevant, rather than degrading over time. In effect, integration transforms the lifecycle from a set of disconnected practices into a unified, centrally managed discipline, one where oversight and security work in concert. Adopting an end-to-end mindset means treating the entire lifecycle as a single surface of risk and opportunity. Each stage is interdependent. A failure in collection cannot be fully repaired at labeling, and lapses in deletion can undo years of careful governance. Full visibility across stages is therefore essential. Viewing the lifecycle holistically makes clear that controls are not optional add-ons but core structural supports. It also builds bridges to future AI controls, such as watermarking of data or automated red teaming of pipelines, which rely on comprehensive visibility to be effective. The lifecycle perspective thus expands security thinking from point defenses to systemic resilience, matching the complexity of AI systems with equally layered safeguards. The conclusion of this episode is that data lifecycle security is not a niche topic but the bedrock of AI governance. We have seen how collection, labeling, storage, retention, and deletion each present distinct risks that require tailored protections. Provenance, integrity, and confidentiality measures reinforce trust at every stage, while access controls, encryption, and secrets management reduce exposure. The regulatory environment adds external accountability, while tooling and automation provide practical enforcement. Together, these elements make clear that lifecycle protections are as important as model-centric defenses or inference safeguards. Without them, AI rests on unstable foundations. With them, systems gain durability and credibility in the face of growing scrutiny. Retention and deletion emerged as particularly critical stages, since they define the long-term exposure of sensitive information. Knowing when to keep data and when to retire it is both a compliance necessity and a strategic defense. Lifecycle tagging, expiry policies, and secure erasure processes transform this challenge into a manageable practice. The broader lesson is that security must extend across time, not just across components. Information that was safe yesterday may become a liability tomorrow if not managed carefully. In this sense, lifecycle security is as much about discipline as it is about technology. It demands foresight, balance, and consistent attention, qualities that distinguish resilient organizations from vulnerable ones. As the series continues, the focus will narrow from lifecycle to prompts, which serve as the primary input surface for inference systems. The transition makes sense. Having examined how information flows through time, we now turn to how it enters in the moment of interaction. Prompt security highlights a new category of threats manipulation through language itself that depend directly on how data lifecycle protections are applied. By moving from long-term data concerns to real-time input challenges, the Prepcast maintains its layered approach, ensuring that each episode prepares the ground for the next. With lifecycle principles in place, we are now equipped to explore the subtleties of prompt injection and jailbreak risks. Thanks for tuning in to Bare Metal Cyber, your trusted source for cybersecurity educational materials, news, and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.